No matter how experienced you are when you come in, there's a couple of like culture or system that you have to always learn. But when we talk about character, I think it's for me how respectful a person is, not only to us but also to themselves.
I'm always willing to invest the time and the energy to grow the talent. But attitude, personality, I think it's something that I'm value more.
Welcome to What's on Your Plate. Today, we're sitting down with Budi Kayadi and Chef Hans Christian, the duo behind the restaurant August in Jakarta. What started out as a DM leads to two people who really respect each other in the industry, come together and have a shared vision for a restaurant. And this is how they built August, a restaurant that's been influential in reshaping Jakarta's dining scene. Here's their story. I realized that there were so many amazing people there, but sometimes in these trips, people summarize our industry in a reel, like an Instagram reel or an article or a press release, and a really nice, pleasant presentation of the industry. And no one really talks about the hardships and the sacrifices and all the blood, sweat, tears, and countless hours. So I was really interested in what you guys were doing in Jakarta, and I guess I want to start out with a little icebreaker. I already asked Hans, but I want to know what was your experience like in the Philippines, and we can dig a little deeper to all your stories.
Philippines was great. I enjoyed our short but sweet visit. I think the cities shared similarity between Jakarta and Manila. But yeah, the only thing that I said to Hans, I wish we would have a little bit more time to try some staple food, because like that past few days we were in San Alfonso, we were in Toyo, we were in Hapak. So I wish we would have to try, like where usually the boys going for the traditional lechon, for example, not the fancy one. But yeah, maybe we can go next time.
Yeah, we're so close to each other, It's an interesting thing that it's your first time, both of you.
First time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's but it's so near, right? We're neighbors, and I hope whoever listens to this would be encouraged to also visit you guys there, and same as people from your area come visit the Philippines, because there's so much fun and just a few hours. One question I always love asking this of people in the industry: what was like your first job? And because I know I've looked at your LinkedIn, I've stalked you both, I've watched podcasts about you, but people don't always write their first jobs. But I'm curious, what was your first job in the industry, or maybe your gateway to getting hooked on the F&B industry?
Hans, maybe first, your first job.
My first job, because Budi tried to remember his. My first. Yeah, okay. So my first job, I would say my first internship is in, I still remember it's in a Westin Hotel in Kuala Lumpur. That's my very first kitchen job, and they put me in the breakfast section, which is the hardest section for me. The omelette egg station, where people request for a white omelette, mixed omelette. That's, I think, where I learned how to be efficient, how to be fast, and not to panic, when the order is too many.
Yeah. And how about for you, Budi?
My first internship was at the lobby bar at One Allwich in London. So I did my first internship in London in the lobby bar. I think back then it was one of the hip bar. Is situated in the lobby, and One Allwich it's basically a boutique hotel. Back then, I think the term boutique hotel was, like very rare. And I was there, very new to the industry, and in the middle of this chaotic bar, try to learn my way and try to follow the the crowd, and it was fun, but it was hard in the beginning because I came from a background, or I think Indonesia, when you are in a certain age, you're not familiar with all this alcoholic drinks and beverages. And all of a sudden there in London, people are so accustomed with that, like Bloody Mary. I need to learn what is Bloody Mary. I need to learn what is gin and what's the difference between gin and vodka. So yeah, that was my first job in the industry for 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that you both had this job where for you, Hans, it's like learning the different ways of eggs. And then for you, Budi, it's like alcohol, and I'm sure it was a shock to the
Yeah,
system. And I guess now when you hire people, what do you look for? Is there something specific based on you both have such a heavy experience in the hospitality industry? Are there things that you look for that make people employable, or like, yes, you're in?
For me, I always believe we are like skill can be taught. And that's the true thing. Attitude is a small little thing that make big difference. So these days, I always look for character. I think Hans will agree. But for me, being in the front of house, I always look for a character, personality, more than skill. If I see there's a talent with great personality, fantastic character, but skill are not maybe in par in what we are looking for. I'm always willing to invest the time and the energy to grow the talent. But attitude, personality, I think it's something that I'm value more.
For you, Hans, do you look for something specific, like in the
yeah,
CV?
yeah. Of course, like because like we always know that we want to grow people in August, and eventually, me and Budi cannot do everything by ourselves, so we have to help as many people to grow, to be a leader. And I think when I totally agree with what Budi said when we talk about like character and attitude, which is more important than the skill. Um, because in August we do things like our way, and no matter how experienced you are when you come in, there's a couple of like culture or system that you have to always learn. But when we talk about character, I think it's for me personally, we were talking about like how respectful a person is, not only to us but also to themselves, like how they value and see themselves, and also like whether they have a strong mentality. It's not like we're gonna like push them super hard, like when people see in some TV show or like Hell's Kitchen or something like that. But it's more about like um when you are there and you work your way up, for sure there's gonna be, like, for me the hardest part is managing people and to interact with your colleague. um and I think the mentality will play a very big part there, because in the kitchen you work with, I don't know, like with 5 people, with 10 people, or with 20 people. So what we want to see is how this specific individual interact with people, and how they bring themselves in. That's why we always require 1 or 2 days of trial.
Okay.
So it's not
Yes.
like only verbal interview, but only like 1 or 2 days of like full working trial.
Yeah. I remember one of my first jobs in Melbourne. I was trying to get a job as a dishwasher, waitress, whatever it is. I just wanted to make sure that I could work. And my first thing was to go in a line of streets and give my resume. And I would go to all the nice cafes, restaurants. Like, I just pass my resume and see I was Asian, it's a very Australian environment. There were not a lot of Asians then as a waitress, and I was super shy. And I remember one of my best friends then, she asked me, hey, there's a job opening in this cafe. It's a really known like third wave cafe, and they're doing trials. I went there, and the guy, he looked at
Okay.
me head to toe, and he goes, okay, you do a trial now. I was like, now? And he's like, now, you start. And I was so nervous, but that's the reality. Like, you have this paper, you have all these credentials, you went to culinary school and such, but at the end of the
That's
day,
right.
it's the trial that's going to say a lot
Yeah.
about a person. And yeah, it's, yeah. I want to go into the name of the restaurant. I know that you're both born in August, is that right? And how did you come up with the name? Like, I love the meaning. It's respected and impressive, and I just think that's so beautiful. To name a restaurant.
We always know that like for Budi and me, this is like when we decided to partner up and do something together, we know that this is gonna be like our first baby, like a very personal project for both of us. Like we are going to be there, we are going to just, invest ourselves in this place. So we want to find something that belong to both of us. Because usually, like the typical, like the what we already have is a chef named the restaurant after the name of uh his personal name or anything like that. Um, so yeah, turns out both of us were born in August, so we decided to name August, and we like the meaning in English. It's respected and impressive, which that's what we aim to be, So
Yeah. It's not so
It's a
much
good
about
reminder.
it's not so much about, like not a self-claim, but yeah, something that I think a reminder for us that there's something that we want to be and, aspire to be in whatever we do in August.
Yeah.
And that's why it is there.
Well, I have to say, one thing that when I was watching you move and Hapag, and I think this is the same with the Hapag team, there's a lot of, I wouldn't say it's like elegance and, people would say it's fashionable, but what I see is like, like a horse galloping, like very elegant, like you know that you have to respect these people. From the way you dress, even, but when you gave me your business card, I was like, this is not a cheap business card. This is a card that has a lot of
Right.
detail and says a lot about what you guys do. I want to ask you about a post I saw, Budi, about how you guys met. You were talking about that you connected through a direct message or a
Right.
DM. And I am a big believer in the power of a DM and a cold email, and that it can really lead to magic. Can you tell me how that happened between the two of you?
I messaged Hans. So the story started that I was working on my previous job. I was running a few restaurants, and Hans was at the Fairmont, Jakarta back then, working at the restaurant called View. So I think back then, I'm not quite sure actually why I picked that restaurant, but I went there with my manager. And we were sitting and, basically we just catching up. Back then, just to put you into context, I was more behind the scene guy. I was not running the operation, so I was more running the business for this company. So I was going there with my manager, and we ordered the food. It was a tasting, and when when the food arrived, and I remember there was a lamb dish, and the chef came and explained to me about the dish, and I think one particular thing she said, oh yeah, we use the papaya leaf, as a agent to make sure that the meat are tender, and that was a technique where I was familiar with when I was a lot younger when my mom cooked at home. And I thought, wow, there's a chef explaining. I knew it wasn't Hans. So there was a team member explaining to the guests. And the funny thing that a few days before that, I was encouraging the culinary team, to explain the food to the guests. And obviously, it wasn't a common thing back then. And, there's some resistance in the team until I went to view and I thought, oh, there's somebody's doing exactly the same thing. So it must have been something right. I didn't say hi to Hans back then. We finished the meal, and then I DM him. And I said, look, I'm from the industry, Hans. I'd been to your restaurant. The service was great. The food was great. If you care, we can meet up for coffee. Just to exchange. I want to get to know your background and things. And then Hans said, yeah, sure. Let's meet up for coffee. And yeah, the rest was history. I think back then, I think the first meeting was just sort of to know where he was before, and he was asking me what I'm doing, without the intention to do our restaurant together. So it was more a casual industry talk, really. And that's it, it's from 1 p.m., a coffee meeting. And then I went again to his restaurant when he did the plant-based tasting menu, which I think it was amazing. And then at that time, we met in the restaurant. But that I was after the coffee, and I think after that, the whole process, I think the whole coffee thing, I think lasts for a year, until we decided, okay, we wanted to do things. I wanted to do my own, because I've been in the industry long enough, but I was just more looking for the right opportunity and the right partner. And throughout the conversation, Hans also saying, look, he was also dreaming to have his own. But I think one thing that we share in common, I said to him throughout the conversation, look, I think it's very hard to run a restaurant where you don't have a chef that on the same vision with you, on the same book as you. You wanted the chef that very driven, very innovative. You want the chef that also very creative, without the other side of the ball keep knocking on the door, say, chef, we need the new menu, chef, we need this, we need that. So I said, for me as a front of house, I would need that. Now then, Hans also shared him as a chef that he would need somebody that he can rely on in the front, to make sure the guests have a good experience, to make sure that the food is served right and explained right, and everything around that. So that the moment that I knew, okay, this guy has the same kind of like way of thinking and vision. And then we start talking about having the business together. And, we clicked.
Hans, what were you thinking when he reached out to you? I mean, was it random? Were you just, I don't know what it's like there, but I remember I DM'd someone I was interested in as a person, like someone I respected in the industry. And then the person thought I was going to sell something, because, usually people don't cold message, right? Because I was just genuinely like, she was an investor in a burger brand that I love. It's called Honest Burger in the UK. And she was saying that she thought I was going to pitch something, but she thought I was like, she was just worried. But I just do that. I sometimes just message people I appreciate, and I don't want anything. I'm not selling anything.
Yeah.
But what were you thinking, Hans, when Budi messaged you?
Like when people in the industry DM me, it's only either of two things, they wanna come and visit me, or they wanna offer something.
Oh, okay.
But at that time, it's I didn't think of I don't really overthink it, because the thing is, I respect that Budi came to my restaurant first to eat and to dine and to experience, instead of like what I don't really understand is when people try to offer me something, or to work together, or to collab. but they never spend the time to at least come and or like try my food
Okay.
or
Yeah.
stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I just appreciate the DM, and for me, like Budi is the rare Pokemon here. Like there's a lot of chef in Jakarta, but
You've
not
just been
not a
compared
lot
to a
of
Pokemon.
no,
That's
but
the best.
not a lot of like a driven front of the house individual
Mm.
by ratio. I mean, there's you can meet a lot of chefs. So at the time, I was also a bit like interested to know more about Budi, and I think we kind of like have the same a bit of a mindset of how we see things in the operation or in the industry, and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I want to highlight something because I think a lot of young people would listen to this. And I remember reading before that to make good friends and connections, you need to show up. You need to not be transactional and just message people. And you actually need to go to the restaurant, go to a place. Don't just text people when you need them. I think that's, yeah. It was a study where they were, it was a school and there was this girl that they plotted there. And what happened was she showed up every day. And when they asked the students if they know this girl and if they like this girl, they said yes, they like this girl, but they don't even know her. She's not even a real classmate. But because she was there every day, people ended up liking her. So the point is, some people will text a chef
Right.
or like text someone and be like, "Hey, chef, I want a job," but they've never been to the restaurant, and that's the wrong way to go about
No, I
it.
agree. I agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you said. But I mean, for me, the intention was it was more like I wanted to network. Like I sincerely believe. I think that moment when the chef came out, and I thought, oh wow, so because people think that I was crazy. We were talking about 2017, 18, I think, and it wasn't, especially in Jakarta, it wasn't that usual, for a chef, or usually only the head chef. But this is like when the culinary team came out. So I thought like, oh, this is interesting. I want to know the thought behind that. And that's how my intention in the beginning. I want to know like why he did what he did. So yeah.
Hmm. You both seem like you get along. I want to know when you don't get along. Are there moments where you don't get along and disagree?
Well, like no, it's not like about not getting along, but like honestly, for me, it's better to argue because you know what you want rather than arguing about uh lack of work ethics. When you expect your partner to show up and you expect your partner to put more on the tables. For me, that's more exhausting than to argue because, of certain things that we want to fight for. So I think, yeah, me and Budi discuss and argue a lot of things that we care about. But yeah, never. It's never like a fight or
Yeah,
something.
like I think it was more like a reasoning there. I always, I mean, a lot of people ask this question, like how do you do this partnership? Because it's a chef thing and it's a non-chef thing, right? But I always say to a few people that ask us this, for me, I think the line, it's drawn pretty clear. Hans will do with anything. I trust him with everything that in terms of production. And the same time, Hans also trusts me with anything that coming as a part of the hospitality. But it doesn't mean that we cannot give feedback. But I wouldn't get my hands dirty when I mean I wouldn't criticize the way that he does thing in the kitchen, or the same with me. But I think it's more like I would give him advice as a point of view in front of the guest. Chef, probably this one it's a bit too small or too big, or like how the guest would see it, how the guest would have the perspective over it. And I think the same with him, like he sometimes give me a thought, like that sometimes maybe I don't think, that it can be improved, it can be, but I think we both work very clear between two division that with the same objective. So we reasoning a lot. Like Hans would ask me, why would I do this? Just purely out of curiosity. And I have to, I justify, because I think it's important for your partner to understand why we do things to our guests. And the same, with him. For me, like I give you a clear example, with the chef that I used to work before, they always wanted to put the protein on the right. And this is a true example. And when I work with Hans, like he, all of a sudden he said, no, I want the protein on the left. And I thought, okay, that's different, but then I asked, and I said, why? Why do you want the one on the left? Because usually it's on the right. And then he come with the thought, yeah, because we presume this is a right-handed. So he said, your knife is on the right. It's easier for you to cut the meat when it's on the left. It's something that you grew up with the industry standard. You don't think that way. But then he leave it to me. He doesn't force this. And I thought, okay, that's a new thing. It makes sense. Why not? Why not we do this? Things like that. So we reasoning a lot instead of, I think, the word argue, like agree to disagree. But yeah, we reasoning a lot.
Yeah. Do you remember that conversation, Hans, about the protein?
It was back in the apartment, I suppose.
Yeah, because it's very, sometimes it's very awkward, when you have to move your elbow a bit to the back just to cut the meat on the right hand side. But yeah.
But this is the level of detail that people have in this type of dining. It's no one knows that this is the little things that restaurant owners obsess over.
Yeah.
And that sets apart of the people that are rated so highly, like whether it's the bathrooms, the temperature of the room, everything. And one thing I want to ask you is, because people will look at your restaurant and it's this beautiful 50-seater glamour. I haven't been, but I will make sure I go. And how does one fund a restaurant? Like, do you have any tips for young chefs that they want to start a restaurant? Like, how do they raise money to build like a dream restaurant? Like, how did you guys go about it?
Like for me personally, I think it comes down to what happened outside, I think it comes down to your own saving or a bank loan, or find an investor to pitch. I think it's either those three, So and I think what's the most common is to find an investor to pitch. Or I think different places have a different case. Like, for example, in America, when I was spent some time in the US, I know a lot of chefs open like a very small restaurant or cafe through a bank loan. But I think in Indonesia it's not very common. So I think it's different with every place. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think investor is necessary. I think yeah, depending on how big is the restaurant, but I think it's important to find a partner or investor that share the same vision. It's very hard when of course, you're saving, And this is something that me and Hans always believe, when we have our skin in the game, we know that this is a no U-turn, and, even I think when we delayed the development of the restaurant, in one point, because we both resigned, right, from our job, and we were saying, if this is not happening next year, I think we need to start finding a job, like you can't keep living on the saving. But putting your saving, I think it's I don't genuinely believe in this golden shares, in a sense that you don't have a sense of ownership, or you have less. Let's put it that way. So when you put your money in the game, you know that this is your safety net that you're putting in there, and you gotta fight for it. You gotta turn the things around when they don't come out as you wish. But I think the most important, even if you have to find an investor, please find the investor that share the same dreams and the same vision, because the last thing that you want to hear, that the partnership break up because of a different understanding. For example, like if we have so much about guest satisfaction, we want to create the memories, but then on the other side, it's all about revenue, regardless how you're gonna do it. Sooner or later it's gonna crack. And I didn't think that anyone wish to have that partnership broken. So it's important for anyone that want to start. My advice: always be honest upfront. Me and Hans, we put everything on the table. This is what what we. I mean, I still remember the first conversation me and Hans saying, "Oh yeah, we're gonna open a restaurant." Okay, we agreed. And I think both of us kind of like saying at the same time. But when we open a restaurant, we both gonna be there every day in, day out. Like you don't go there just whenever you want. And we agree on that. We know that we agree on that. There's no, I can only do this 2 days a week. I can only do this 3 days a week. No, we commit right away. We will be there day in and day out. And I think that's important, to be honest, with your partner and also with your investor, Yeah.
You are a father of two
Three.
or
Three
three
kids.
kids, if I'm
Yeah.
three. And Hans, you have not yet, right? Not yet. Okay, but how do you balance like home life? Because you said every day you have to be in the restaurant, and this is the thing that I want people who listen to this podcast, that restaurants there are a lot of hours, a lot of your life is in the restaurant, and personal relationships are also important. And I always say that no one is gonna read your LinkedIn bio when you die. They're gonna talk about the relationships that you have, and how do you guys take care of that and make sure that you're not going off the path? Is there, or you just have an understanding partner?
Well, that's also.
Okay, let's well, you have to, right? But like for me personally, when we first dating, I'm a bit selfish in a way that every time we dated or we went to eat somewhere, I kept like I spend a little bit time to always warn her, like every week. So out of the 3 hours of like talking and all that, I spend like consistently a good 5 minutes to warn her. Like I'm a chef and I really love what I do, and I have quite a big ambition. So this is what happened. Blah 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 blah. And the end goal is for me to open a restaurant, and when I open a restaurant, it's gonna be crazier than what I do now. So I just like,
I can't even
sometimes
imagine your dates.
yeah. No, yeah, you don't. Yeah, you can blame me, but no, because I was so afraid, because I don't want to lead people to something that they're not prepared
Yeah.
for. and I'm not willing to argue in the later time because I don't talk about it like enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just made sure that she knows. But even then, I couldn't use that as like a defense for me to do whatever I want, right? Like right now, I still have to spend the effort to be with her and spend the time. But yeah, I mean, she understands. She understands, hopefully, in a way now that I have to be there. Like when we opened the I think the first year, we still do 6 days a week, and I got back home at around like 1 a.m. in the morning, and we had supper at 1:30 in the morning for the first 6 months, and it was tough. But it
Wow.
also it's not so much about the time that you spend, but it's also about uh the mind, like sometimes you're at home but your mind is like on the menu somewhere, or thinking about like your staff or some problem or some complaint in some Google review. So
Mhm.
it's tough that way, but I'm glad that my wife can understand. So
Yeah. I love what you said.
sometimes.
Like, oh, yeah, there's no Valentine's, Christmas, and all these like seasonal celebrations that people normally celebrate as a couple, right? Because
Oh
they're
yeah.
in the
No,
restaurant. The,
not for the
the,
last 6 years.
yeah. How about you, Budi? Like for 3 kids and then your partner, how does it
Yeah.
work?
No, I mean, I think you mentioned about understanding partner. I think yes, I gotta be very grateful with. Yeah, I mean, of course, there's a part of. Sorry, I just need to charge this quickly before I get there.
Yeah, go for it.
No, of course, I mean, I have to be grateful that Welly, my wife, I think sacrifice or being understanding throughout the time that we are together. But basically, I'm not saying that Hans it's easier, but Hans' wife was studying about hospitality as well. So it kind of like I mean, it's it kind of like she has the picture. But my wife is a complete outsider of this industry. So I still remember, I think when we were dating, I just moved from London back to Jakarta. The first event was Chinese New Year. So I just settled down a month, and then there was a Chinese New Year, and my family is not here, so she was like being kind, Oh, let's go to my grandma place, and we can have a Chinese New Year dinner, And I say, look, I just started. I don't think it's appropriate for me to take a time off but I haven't told her like what be a life like. So I said, look, I don't think it's appropriate for me to take a time off on the Chinese New Year Eve. So, I'm okay. You can go for dinner. I'm here. And then she was okay. She being understanding. Okay, you're new. And then I still remember the second event, exactly what you're saying, Valentine's Day. I said, look, the restaurant is busy. I need to do this. And I think after long weekend Easter, she start picking up. Oh, so it means that every holiday things that you gotta work, we can't go together. And I said, yes, unfortunately, I think like Hans said, I come clean, and I say, look, this is the profession that I do for the past 10 years back then. And I said, yeah, there was a time that where I think holiday season, the hotel is always busy, and it required me to be there. But in the beginning, of course, it was harder because I think as a partner and also as a outsider, you always question, why do you have to be there? I mean, if you are the director of F&B, why do you have to be present? There was always a question about that, but I done explain that it's important. It's my profession need me to be there. So she stopped to understand better about the industry there. But coming to the restaurant, I explained to her that I think Welly is kind of like, I mean, when we opened August, I think my challenge was not only my wife. I think my wife kind of like understand after that, we've been married for like 12 years now. So, she kind of like get it. Okay. But the challenge is toward my kids, because my eldest is 11 years old. And when we preparing this, we were working 6 days a week. We only off on Monday, but Monday they all went to school. So they start questioning why daddy has to work over the weekend. And it's not a Saturday or Sunday, it's both. And, when we work, we do, we finish at midnight. But I explained, I mean, this is something that what I do, and, it requires me to be there. And again, the same question, I explained to them, I own the restaurant, and they start asking, if you are the boss, then why do you need to be there? It's a classic 10 years old question. And, I explained, I took them here, for them to see why I need to be here. And I said, look, I need to greet the guests and meet the guests. In one point, but they said, look, they said they've been here, and they said to me on the way home, I understand if Uncle Hans have to be there because he needs to cook, but you just need to go around and talk. And I don't understand why you have to spend such a long time in the restaurant. It just put Hans into perspective that he's working and I don't. It's funny, but I think Hans and I agreed. One of the reasons why we close on Sunday, that we want to honor this family day. Of course, we have the interest. Hans, recently got married, and I have 3 kids. In one point we talk, look, if we are aim for a revenue, it's endless. But I also have a personal interest to have a weekend off because, and also for the team, it's something that we want to make sure that, I think, in order for us to perform at the highest level, I think it's important for us to recharge with our loved ones. And I think that's where the Sunday family day that we close the restaurant are come across, but also how I juggle in day-to-day things. I make sure that I have enough. I make sure that I spend enough time, even that the time is short. So, for example, my kids going to school in the morning at 5:30. I don't send them to school. We have a driver, but I make sure that I wake up and spend a good 20 minutes in the breakfast table, and just to make sure that cuddling and things, and send them to the car. Yeah, and that's what I do. And then during the Saturday, usually I send them on their basketball practice, or we have lunch. On Monday, for example, when we are off, where usually we get rest, right? Or we can wake up a bit earlier, later. I invest my time, my day off, wake up early, and I send them to school. I send them to their school. So it means that those kind of thing, I hope that it's kind of like they see it as a time that I can spend together with them. I think that's how I try to balance it. It's not all about the job and things, but it's also, if I can spend time with them, then, I'm willing to sacrifice my sleeping time and what's not, Yeah.
Hopefully not in the future, and that you can look after your health. I think it's funny because my parents were also entrepreneurs, and my mom was setting up her culinary school and then her bake shop. And I was always angry when I was young. I would sit in their room and be like, why are you going again? And they told me straight in the face. They said, if you want to spend time with us, you're coming with us, and you're gonna work, and you're gonna work in the. So they would put me in every department, like dishwashing, HR, like, and what they said is, you have no choice.
Wow.
There's no being soft as a kid. And I'm not giving you ideas of using child labor.
Well, I like that idea.
But I remember that I was being aware, like complaining, and my mom's like, this is not the attitude I want for my kid. And if you want to be with us, you're going to have to get to know us through the business. And sometimes now we have a family dog to make everyone softer in the family and less entrepreneurial. But when we were young, it was definitely there. It was, she'll understand. I think your kids will
No,
understand.
they're okay. They're okay.
At
I
some
think
point.
as long
And
as I think balance it off, I think it's something they're looking forward. So yeah, I mean, I'm still coming in
Yeah.
to work, meaning that things are not a problem, you know.
Okay, and they think you're. I hope they think you're doing more than just talking.
Yeah.
Hans, I want to talk about. I want to talk about the restaurant and the food and the service.
Sure.
Thank you so much for sharing a lot about, I guess getting to where you are. And Hans, I was reading the Google reviews and I was looking at the kinds of dishes you have, and it's so intriguing. Like I saw a foie gras, peanut butter and jelly. A couple of things like bubble tea dessert. Can you talk to me a little bit of the menu and so maybe some of your favorite dishes that you've come up with?
Yeah, so basically, before we open August, my forte would be like my cooking would more leaning towards like modern European with Asian touch. There's always be that Asian touch because that's how I grew up, Um, my palate is I grew up in that kind of like environment and that kind of exposure to flavors. So when we opened August, we started with actually a bit more general than what we do now. I think now when I can explain about the food and the flavors that we do, the Indonesian influence or the spices is more pronounced than when we start. When we start, maybe like the DNA is still a bit European, if I say, and but there's always be that little commitment to highlight what we have here. I'm not saying that we only do local products like 100%. I think it's a bit challenging in Jakarta in the setup that we have. But we always commit to highlight like one or two local producer or spices or anything that we can get here. Even like local ceramic maker, just to highlight the community as well. And moving towards the third year now, I think we are getting more specific in the influence of Indonesia that we do in every dish. So when we start, it's very personal, like based on what I have taste, what my traveling experience, my eating experience, um, and so the foie PB&J and the bubble tea from our pastry chef, it's all actually like just something that we love to eat, something that we love to drink, something that very personal for us. Like for example, the foie PB&J comes from my favorite sandwich called Smuckers. So I used to have that every breakfast when I was in the US, and it's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So so yeah, I mean I've been doing that even when I was still at the Fairmont Hotel. So actually that's signature items that I brought over from the previous place to my new place. So yeah, I think some of the dishes really comes from what we love to eat personally and our childhood. memories, or can be something that, like we just grew up enjoying. So
Yeah. How about you, Budi? Like, what is it like that you love about the menu? Whether it's the beverage menu, the food menu. Yeah.
No, I always say to Hans, something I think is very inspiring, that he is using the local produce to elevate the Indonesian flavors through the modern cooking. Because when we discussed this in the beginning, I always knew that his background, because he studied in in the US, and how I work with quite a few chefs. The basic foundation is always French technique, but we always know that even Jakarta is not or does not have a lot of like Western restaurant. At the end of the day, if you only do the French or the Western, so-called modern European, what they call it in general, it's basically it's gonna be same from one restaurant to another. And I think when Hans decided that he wants to go from being the Asian influence when he was in Fairmont and toward the Indonesian, I always fascinating with that, because again, I think we grew up with the Indonesian flavors, but being international, we never had the opportunity to share that with our friends or our colleague back then when we were overseas, because there's such a limited access to this. And when he decided to do it in August, I think it's always fascinating for me to talk. Even I have to say that I don't have the greatest knowledge about the Indonesian and flavors, but through his cooking, I think it's very it's great to be able to share this to people that not accustomed with your culture or not accustomed with the flavors. So yeah.
But how would you describe your service? You seem like a very, I don't know how to describe you, very regal person.
Okay.
Maybe that's the word. But what's the service like in the restaurant? Is there anything specific to it, or do you like to stick to the standard, timeless service that you see in hotels because that's your experience? Or is there something uniquely that you brought in? You're just like, okay, I want to do this if I have a restaurant.
I always started, and I always shared this, including to Hans. My objective is always, for me, restaurant. It's, I think, from where I grew up there, and my parents used to host a lot of dinner at home. Not a fancy thing that you sit in the 20 seats at a table like in the movie, but it's more like a friends and family gathering. Sometimes we do barbecue, sometimes we do steamed fish, Chinese food. But my parents love to invite their friends and our relatives to dine at our place. In fact, I think when I grew up, there's always every Wednesday with no occasion. It's kind of like a potluck kind of thing, but my mom loves to cook. So it's always, we're talking about 3, 4, 5 family coming, and we sit, some in the dining room, some in the living room, drinking beer and things. So I always witnessed my parents to host a dinner. And for me, I think one thing that I always remember that my parents are always love to be hospitable to their friends. So when I open restaurant, I always want to replicate that kind of feeling when you bid the farewell and people happy and enjoying and had a good time. So my main objective is to create that memories and to make people happy. Now, the form, obviously, I went to the hotel, to hospitality school. I practice, my professional life in the 5-star hotel at Mandarin Oriental. And I have to say, Mandarin Oriental, I think, a lot of important seed into how this Asian, or they call it Oriental heritage, when it comes down to hospitality. I don't know if you pay attention, but sometimes, until today, and this is something I learned, like, in the early 2000, 2003, when I was at Mandarin Oriental, they teach us when we give a business card with two hands. It's a very Asian thing.
Oh, yes,
You don't
yes.
give only one. And that's,
Yeah.
I carry on until today. I behave like that, So those small little thing, of course, I get it from my background. But at August, I wanted to elevate the experience for guests. So, for example,
Yeah.
I asked the team. It's essential for them to know the guest name, not only the host, but
Okay.
everyone around the table.
Wow.
It's a very important to know this, and
Yeah.
and then the next thing is, I always give them the liberty to engage the guests. For me, it's not only
Mm.
how's the food or where do you stay. Like more to read a table, to see whether they're in the business meeting, whether they're in the family dinner, or whether they're celebrating something. For me, that is important that we absorb as much as we can. If we don't know if they're celebrating something and they pick it up during the conversation over dinner, then we should act upon it. Whether a little card, whether
Yeah.
it's a small little gesture on the table. But I always want to create that extra miles and the team believing in that, because I think at the end of the day, I think I always love this quote by Maya Angelou. The only thing that people will remember, they will forget what you say and what you do and what you serve, but they always will remember how you make them feel, and that's such a strong statement. The feeling of
Yeah.
dining at August, leaving, and people get to know who you are as a person, and make sure that you are seen. It's important, and that's what
Mm.
I think we demonstrate during our 3 years in August. And and that's where we went to Manila. I'm so happy that
Yeah.
Erin and Naf and 30 give me that opportunity to explore, because sometimes you don't there's a certain places that they don't want to be too intimate with the guests. But I think Hapak and
Yes,
us
yes.
kind of like share those kind of like values. They ask me like, how far do I normally go for a guest? Like I said, the only line it's when it comes to their personal life. But other than that, like you can ask
Yeah.
like, how long are you in
Yeah.
town, or what are you doing, and all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last question, and I've enjoyed this conversation so much, and we could keep talking over and over. And I think this is best continued if I take a trip to
Yeah, sure.
visit you both. Is the one thing I want to ask you is like, there's a lot of like customer nightmare stories of people taking advantage of the restaurant, trying to get freebies, being rude. If you could just sum it up, like if I said this line and you could complete the sentence, customers should stop doing blank.
Feel entitled.
Okay, that's good. And for you, Hans?
Stop doing you put me on the spot. It's
That's
it's hard.
okay. That's okay.
Stop finding a loophole in the restaurant rule.
Okay, okay. Okay, I think that sums up our conversation. I wish you all the fortune and a lot more beautiful moments for your restaurant.
Thank you.
And again, thank you so much. And I really hope that you do come visit us Manila again.
Sure.
And I hope more Filipinos visit you guys and dine in your restaurant. I will be sharing how to reach you guys and reserve. I think that's the best thing you guys can do. If you want to know more about Hans and Budi's, experience it for yourself. They've put a lot of hard work on the restaurant, and I'm always amazed when you dine in a good restaurant because it's really heart, body, soul, mind, everything, the whole works of the people behind it. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon to evening and the weekend. I know you don't have weekends because you'll be working, but enjoy a good service. Thanks for joining us on What's on Your Plate. For conversation highlights or notes on this, or if you'd like to give me feedback on this episode, connect with me at Instagram at @deatrindad_. Next up, we're talking to someone who has done a few influencer tests, about 14 of them. And he shares how he makes money for other businesses through his Instagram reels. So we dig into his story, we talk about personal branding, business, and so much more. And this guest is Tantra Tobing.